aren't my words. These are Nate Silver's words. When he went through his scenarios, when he does his models, he literally says it's unpredictable. It's unclear who's going to win because that's how much of a knife edge, these elections actually are. And not only that, in 2016, the reason Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump was because a third-party candidate called Jill Stein secured 1.07% of the vote. That's only 1%, which somebody might say, what's the point of 1%? But in a tightly contested election like the Trump-Hillary, like the 2016 election, it was sufficient for that 1% to be taken away from the Democrats that made Hillary Clinton lose. And she blamed Jill Stein and she blamed the Green Party for making her lose against Donald Trump. So you may be looking at the numbers and thinking, what's 1%, what's 2%, what's 3%? But it's precisely because it's tied that they have this outsized influence. And it's precisely because it's on a knife edge that we now see, when you look at these Muslim community, I don't want to say community, Muslim influencers, let's call them, or journalists, call them what you will. I won't mention any names, just out of respect for them. When they are coming out now, and you see them, and I saw you respond to a couple of them on Twitter, where they say, Muslims, you have to vote Harris. The other side is going to be worse. Ask yourself the question, what is their concern that makes them speak in a mode of panic that Muslims should go and vote Harris? It's because they themselves acknowledge that this small group of Muslim population, this 2%, 2%, 1.7%, 2%, call it whatever point, they believe these people are able to swing it. When Kamala Harris appoints an Egyptian American to go and win back the Muslim vote, it shows that Kamala Harris is aware that every vote counts in this election. Every single vote counts because it could be decided on a knife edge in those swing states in and of themselves. To answer your question simply, it's the fact that elections are so tight that gives a disproportionate power to the Muslims and those non-Muslims who have become pro-Palestinian.
The mayor of Hamtramck, I think it is, in Michigan, came out. He's the only Muslim mayor, I think, in the country, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, came out in support of Donald Trump. Sami, are you calling for Muslims to vote for Donald Trump in his next election?
Put simply, no. I am aware that the debate within the Republican Party is changing. I'm aware that Tucker Carlson, who was considered by the New York Times as the most influential right-wing pundit on right-wing sentiments, I'm aware that Tucker Carlson is now saying that America shouldn't be funding the Israelis. I'm aware that Candace Owens now is almost day and night attacking the Israelis in a way that she was never doing before. I'm aware that Thomas Massie is calling on his colleagues to come out increasingly and be brave in calling out the Israelis. I'm aware that there is a change in the Republican Party that I believe Muslims should be engaging with in the spirit of da'wah. And I don't mean da'wah in the Dajjalic version, which is the spiritual. I mean da'wah in terms of conveying the message of the Muslims to the Republican parties. But I think the issue of the endorsement by this Muslim, by the American Muslim, by a Yemeni origin of Donald Trump, I think is very unique also to Yemenis. First of all, many Yemenis are bitterly upset that Biden took the Houthis off the terrorist list. I know many people are celebrating the Houthis, and you said, Sami, avoid the controversy, but it is what it is. I know many people are celebrating the Houthis of what's happening in Gaza. But talk to any Yemeni in Yemen itself, and they will tell you the reason the country is at war is because the Houthis keep marching out of Sa'da in the north, and they keep marching down towards Sana'a to take over the land because they believe only Abd al-Malik al-Houthi, or before him Badr al-Din al-Houthi, only the Houthi family have the right to rule Yemen because according to their doctrine, only Ahl al-Bayt are allowed to rule Yemen. And this is the 7th war they've embarked in Yemen. They were bitterly upset, the Yemenis, that they did a national dialogue and that the Houthis marched out of Sa'da. They bought their time during the national dialogue. And then when everybody agreed on a transitional government led by Abdurrahman Mansur Hadi, the Houthis marched and said, forget the transitional government. They allied with the former dictator Ali Abdullah Saleh, who the Yemenis had overthrown. They allied with the former dictator, toppled the transitional government and the like. Under the Trump administration, he was very hard against the Iranians. He put the Houthis on the terrorist list and he essentially bullied the Iranians. And many Yemenis who saw Iran's influence in Yemen as malign, they saw Iranian influence or support for the Houthis. Iran was the first to send an ambassador to the Houthis after they took over Sana'a. Many Yemenis believe that the Democrats betrayed them, betrayed Yemen, betrayed their country and the like. And therefore, many of them have already had an affinity for the Republican Party. The second point worth noting is, and I'm not speaking on his behalf, I'm just analyzing why somebody might endorse Donald Trump in that regard. You can ask him yourself if you're going to Michigan, inshallah, maybe might do an interview with him. In any case, the second reason is the Republicans have been doing an outreach to some of these Muslim communities privately over the past year. In contrast to the Democrats who alienated a lot of Muslims in Michigan over their stance on LGBT. So this mayor in particular was caught up in the anger when the LGBT movement wanted to force schools to teach LGBT, and a lot of the Muslim parents came out in July, the July before the genocide began in Gaza. A lot of parents came out and said, we don't want this to be taught to our kids in school. Kids don't need to be taught about it. And you'll remember Fox News did a very positive coverage of the Muslim parents who were protesting against that. He was caught up in that as well. Very upset at the imposition of the LGBT agenda. And Democrats went very hard against him in that regard. So that also alienated him in this regard. And the third point is, if you listen to his video that he did on Facebook, he describes his interaction with Donald Trump, where Donald Trump invites him to speak on the stage to endorse him. And he narrates a story. He says Trump's team said it might upset some of the donors. It might upset some of the people who support us. And Trump said, no, it doesn't matter. Let him speak. Let him come up and speak on that. And he says that it gave him an indication that Trump is being influenced by the donors, not by an ideological inclination. Now, I'm not saying I believe any of that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the endorsement for Donald Trump or for the Republican Party is not as strange as it might sound when it comes from a Yemeni or when it comes from those who see that Iran has a malign influence in the region in and of itself. There is also an article that came out that showed that Muhammad Boulos, who is a very rich, wealthy Arab, whose son, I think, is married to Tiffany Trump, has been doing the rounds in Arizona to tell people that privately Trump is saying that he doesn't have a problem with the Muslims, he's on good terms with the Emir of Qatar, good terms with the Muslim world and the like, and that they shouldn't worry, and that what he says publicly is not necessary. And there was a court case in Florida, I think he referenced, where a Republican candidate made Islamophobic comments. And when he was taken to court, he said, I was only doing it for political expediency. I don't actually believe this stuff. I'm not saying I believe any of this. What I'm saying is that this endorsement is the result of an outreach by the Republican Party that the Democrats did not do. It's the result of alienation by the LGBT community of the Muslim community by ramming down their agenda in a way the Democrats did not protect the Muslims from. And it's also the result of Democrats saying to the Muslims, your vote doesn't matter to me. The Muslims said, I am heartbroken over Gaza. Stop the genocide. And the Democrats said, you have nowhere to go. The other side is Donald Trump. And we will not even allow a pro-Harris Arab representative to speak on the DNC stage, even to say that, can you please take into consideration what's happening in Palestine? The Democrats were saying to the Muslims in Michigan that we know you have nowhere to go. We're not focused on you. We're focused on appeasing the Zionists. And this mayor turned around and said, given the Democrats are not listening to us, they're not paying attention to us. Republicans have done an outreach. My country, Yemen, is burning because of the Iranians, and the Democrats are trying to make a deal with the Iranians, and they're going easy on the Houthis.